She stood up, smoothed H. Wait, what did you just say? Your father's estate has already been transferred, the lawyer repeated, his voice shaking slightly. I looked at my sister across the table. Tara Mercer sat there in her pearl earrings, smiling like she'd already won the lottery. You can't do that, I whispered. That money isn't yours. She tilted her head, fake sympathy dripping from every word. Oh, Eli, you've always been so emotional. Dad trusted me to handle the estate. You just wasted anyway. I couldn't even move. Every muscle in my body felt frozen. The room smelled like old leather and betrayal. A designer blazer and patted my shoulder like I was some helpless child who needed guidance. You should be grateful I'm taking care of things for you. I flinched back. The lawyer looked away, clearly uncomfortable. She stole everything and she was calling me ungrateful. Before I tell you how the truth destroyed her perfect little scheme, please like and subscribe. Because this one hurts. My name is Eli Mercer. I'm 29 years old and I just learned that blood doesn't always mean family. The night before my father passed away, he called me to his bedside. His voice was weak, barely above a whisper, but his eyes were still kind and warm. Promise me something, Eli, he said, gripping my hand with what little strength he had left. No matter what happens after I'm gone, take care of your sister. She means well, even when it doesn't look like it. If I had known what she was planning, what she was about to do to me, I would have begged him right then and there to change that will. But I didn't know, I just nodded. Because back then I still believed Tara had a heart somewhere inside her chest. I still believed she was capable of being the sister I grew up with, the one who used to share secrets with me under blanket forts when we were kids. I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. Dad died the next morning at 7:15. The doctors said it was peaceful, but sitting there watching him take his last breath, nothing felt peaceful at all. 2 weeks after the funeral, Tara gathered everyone at Dad's house for what she called a family meeting. The air was thick with fake sympathy and the smell of expensive champagne that she'd ordered for the occasion. She stood beside Dad's portrait in the living room, dressed in black like she was performing grief for an audience. I just want to thank everyone, she announced, her voice carrying across the room, for supporting me during this incredibly difficult time. And my brother Eli, thank you for understanding your place in all of this. People laughed politely. Some nodded like she'd said something wise. I didn't laugh. I didn't nod. My place. What exactly was my place supposed to be? I clenched my jaw so hard I could taste blood on my tongue. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't grief at all. This was something else entirely. This was a takeover, and I was the only one who could see it happening right in front of everyone's eyes. Before I tell you what I found next, please like and subscribe because this discovery still makes my hands shake. I was cleaning out Dad's study 3 days after that meeting when I found it. A folded manila envelope tucked carefully inside an old photo album. The album was from when Tara and I were kids, filled with pictures of birthday parties and summer vacations. Inside the envelope were bank statements, dates, signatures, wire transfers, all going directly to Tara's personal account. And the dates made my blood run cold. My father was still alive when these transfers happened. She'd been stealing from him for months, maybe even longer, before he even died. I sat there on the hardwood floor of his study, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Every transaction I read felt like another knife sliding between my ribs. She hadn't just taken advantage of his death. She'd been robbing him while he was dying. When I finally worked up the courage to confront the lawyer Harrison Banks, he looked uncomfortable the moment I walked into his office. Eli, he said softly, adjusting his glasses nervously, there was another will. A final one that your father drafted just weeks before he passed. Your sister never knew about it. I was supposed to deliver it to you personally after the funeral. My pulse started racing so fast I could hear it pounding in my ears. Then where is it now? I demanded. He sighed heavily, running his hand through his thinning gray hair. That's the problem, son. Someone got here first. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. She'd taken it. Tara had somehow found out about the second will and stolen it before anyone else could see what was inside. What did it say? I asked desperately. Harrison shook his head. I can't discuss the contents without the original document. I'm sorry, Eli, my hands are tied legally. The next morning I arrived at Harrison's office to find complete chaos. Papers were scattered everywhere across the floor like someone had tossed them in anger. File cabinets stood open, their contents dumped carelessly. And the safe behind his desk, the heavy metal door hung open, completely empty. The smell of my sister's expensive perfume still lingered faintly in the air like a ghost. She'd broken in and stolen the will. I stood there in that destroyed office, my hands shaking as the full weight of reality came crashing down on me like a building collapse. She hadn't just stolen my inheritance. She'd erased every piece of evidence that proved it was ever supposed to be mine in the first place. How far was she willing to go? What else was she capable of doing? I felt sick to my stomach thinking about the answers to those questions. Harrison appeared in the doorway, his face pale. I've called the police. 2 days later my phone rang while I was trying to sleep. It was the Riverside Police Department. Someone had reported a break-in at Harrison Banks's law office, and somehow mysteriously my name was on the report as a person of interest. I had to go down to the station to answer questions. Tara was waiting for me outside when I arrived, leaning against her silver BMW with a pitying smile plastered across her face. I told you, Eli, she said, her voice dripping with false concern, you should have just stayed out of it. You're only making things so much worse for yourself by being stubborn. She was wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy outside. For the first time in my entire life, I felt something I never thought I'd feel toward my own sister, pure hatred. You did this, I said quietly. She just smiled wider and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement. I watched her drive off, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. That night I drove 2 hours north to Dad's old cabin by Crystal Lake, the only place that felt untouched by Tara's greed. The smell of pine trees and rain felt like coming home again after years away. I searched the cabin top to bottom, looking for anything that might help me. Under the loose floorboards in the bedroom, I found a small metal box that I'd never seen before. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter in Dad's familiar scrawl. Eli, if you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. If you ever doubt what's right, trust your instincts. The truth will always find you, son. Keep looking, the answers are closer than you think. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something flicker deep inside my chest. Hope, small and fragile but real. Dad had left me a trail to follow. I just had to be smart enough to find it. Dad's old accountant, Vincent Torres, agreed to meet me quietly at a diner on the edge of town. He was nervous, checking over his shoulder every few minutes like he thought someone might be watching. When I showed him the documents Tara had given to the bank to transfer the accounts, his weathered face went completely pale. These are forged, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Your father never signed these papers. I would know. I witnessed his signature dozens of times over 20 years. My heart stopped beating for a full second. I had proof, real, actual proof. Vincent pulled out copies of genuine documents from his briefcase, papers with Dad's real signatures for comparison. The difference was obvious once you knew what to look for. The pressure points were wrong, the loops on the letters were too perfect. Tara's inheritance was built entirely on lies. Will you testify to this? I asked. Vincent hesitated, then nodded slowly. Your father was a good man, he deserves justice. Before I show you how she tried to destroy me completely, please like and subscribe because this part still makes my blood boil. Tara started spreading rumors around town the following week, telling anyone who would listen that Dad had cut me off completely because of gambling problems and drug use. Neither of which was remotely true, but people believed her. They always believed her. Old friends stopped returning my phone calls. People I'd known my entire life crossed the street when they saw me coming. Some whispered behind their hands when I walked by in the grocery store. It wasn't enough for Tara to steal the money. She wanted to destroy my reputation too. She wanted to take my name, my dignity, everything that made me who I was. She wanted me erased. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin. Is it true what they're saying about you? Please tell me it's not true. I didn't even know how to respond anymore. A week later, an official letter arrived from First National Bank, a notice about a bounced check for $15,000. The check had my forged signature scrawled across the bottom. She'd planted evidence to make me look like a thief, like someone who would steal from his own dying father. But Tara made one critical mistake. She used the exact same pen pressure pattern as the forged wool signatures, the same slight tremor on the downstrokes, the same hesitation marks, and I'd kept copies of absolutely everything. Every forged document, every suspicious transfer, every piece of her carefully constructed lie. I spread them all out on my kitchen table and stared at them for hours, looking for patterns, for connections, for anything that would help me bring her down. The evidence was there. I just needed someone who could prove it in a way that would hold up in court, someone who could expose her lies to the world. That night, something inside me finally broke. I stood alone in Dad's cabin and screamed into the empty darkness until my throat burned raw and my voice gave out completely. How could you do this to me, Tara? How could you do this to Dad? The walls didn't answer me back. Only the echo of my own broken voice filled the silence, and then that strange, cold resolve that settled over me like a blanket of ice. If she wanted to paint me as the villain in her story, then fine. I'd give her a mirror instead. I'd show her exactly what a real villain looked like, and it would be wearing her face. I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and pulled out my phone. It was time to fight back, time to stop being the victim and start being the person who brought the truth into the light, no matter what it cost me. I hired a forensic handwriting expert named Dr. Patricia Vance. She came highly recommended by Harrison, who was secretly helping me build my case behind the scenes. After spending 2 hours carefully analyzing every document I'd collected, Dr. Vance looked up at me with complete certainty in her eyes. Every single one of these documents is fake, she declared, and whoever forged them used the exact same tracing technique for all of them. Same pressure patterns, same hesitation marks, same microscopic tremors. It's actually quite sloppy work once you know what to look for. My hands were shaking. Can you prove that in court? Will a judge believe you? She smiled confidently. Mr. Mercer, I've testified in over 200 cases. My analysis has never been successfully challenged. Yes, I can prove this in court. I finally had my weapon, the tool I needed to tear down everything Tara had built on lies. How soon can you prepare your report? I asked. Give me 1 week. I called Tara the next day, forcing my voice to sound defeated and broken. I'm done fighting you, I said quietly. Can we please just talk, maybe work something out? She agreed instantly, probably thrilled that I was finally giving up. We met at her favorite coffee shop downtown, the expensive one with the Italian marble counters. I let her talk, let her brag about how well she was managing her inheritance. "You'll thank me someday, Eli," she said, stirring her latte with a silver spoon. "You're just not built for this kind of pressure and responsibility. You should honestly be grateful that I took over when I did. Dad knew you couldn't handle it." Her voice was thick with confidence and contempt. What she didn't notice was the small digital recorder tucked carefully in my jacket pocket, capturing every single word that came out of her mouth. Every lie, every confession, every piece of evidence I needed. "You're probably right," I said, playing my part perfectly. "I'm sorry for fighting you," she actually smiled. "I forgive you, little brother." Harrison called me late that same night, his voice urgent and excited. "Eli, she made a mistake, a big one," he said quickly. "She filed something under the wrong case number in the county records system. I think it might be the original will, the real one your father wrote." My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. "Can you get a copy?" "I'm looking at it right now. I'm sending it to your email immediately." When the file downloaded and I opened it with trembling hands, tears filled my eyes. Dad had left everything to me, not because he loved Tara any less, but because he trusted me to protect the family legacy, to honor his memory, to do the right thing with his life's work. The will was dated just 3 weeks before he died. Tara had destroyed the very thing she'd fought so desperately to control, and now I had the proof to expose everything. I waited an entire week before making my move. No phone calls to Tara, no surprise visits, nothing. I let her think I'd disappeared, that I'd given up completely and crawled away in defeat. Meanwhile, my lawyer, the handwriting expert, and Vincent, the accountant, quietly gathered every single piece of evidence we had. Bank records, forged signatures, recorded confessions, the real will. Everything was organized into a case file that was absolutely airtight. And then on a gray Monday morning, we filed the lawsuit at the county courthouse. Fraud, forgery, theft, elder abuse, 4 separate charges, each one carrying serious legal consequences. Harrison looked at me as we walked out of the courthouse. "There's no going back now, Eli. Are you absolutely sure about this?" I nodded without hesitation. She made her choices, now she gets to live with them. The wheels of justice were finally turning. Tara was throwing an elaborate dinner party at Dad's house, her house now, supposedly, when I walked in completely uninvited. The place was packed with her wealthy friends, all drinking wine and laughing too loud. "Mind if I say a few words?" I asked, my voice cutting through the noise. The room went silent, every face turned toward me. Tara's expression shifted from shock to fury in half a second. I pulled out a small Bluetooth speaker from my bag and set it carefully on the dining room table. Then I pressed play. Her own voice filled the room, crystal clear. "You think anyone's going to believe you over me? You've got no proof, Eli. Dad trusted me, not you. Everyone knows you're unstable." The silence in that room was deafening. I watched the color drain completely from Tara's face as her own words condemned her. "That's what you said to me 2 weeks ago," I said calmly. "Remember?" Someone gasped. Wine glasses froze halfway to lips. I smiled faintly and walked out, leaving her standing there drowning in shame. She stormed into my apartment the very next day, shaking with pure rage. She didn't even knock, just used the spare key I'd forgot she had and burst through my door. "You're ruining everything," she screamed, her face red and twisted. "Everything I've worked for, everything Dad wanted." I stood completely still, my voice calm. "No, Tara, you did that all by yourself." She slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed in my small apartment. It didn't hurt as much as her next words. "Dad should have left absolutely nothing to you. You don't deserve any of it." Then she turned and stormed out, slamming the door so violently that picture frames rattled on my walls. But I didn't chase after her, didn't shout back. I just smiled quietly to myself, because tomorrow morning a process server would be knocking on her door with the lawsuit papers, and her entire world would come crashing down. If you're still watching, please like and subscribe, because this is where karma starts working overtime. Her scream when she opened that envelope could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Fraud, forgery, theft, elder abuse. 4 serious charges spelled out in legal language she couldn't twist or manipulate. She called me that same night, her voice breaking with tears. "Eli, please, I'm sorry. I'll fix everything, I swear. I'll give it all back. Just drop the lawsuit, please." For a moment, just a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered Dad's face in that hospital bed, remembered the forged signatures, remembered her calling me ungrateful. "You already fixed everything, Tara," I said quietly. "You fixed it the moment you decided to lie." Then I hung up. She called back 17 times that night. I didn't answer once. Let her feel what it's like to be ignored, to have your calls go straight to voicemail, to be completely alone. The trial started on a cold morning in November. The courtroom smelled like old wood and tension. Tara's lawyer was expensive and smooth, painting her as the responsible sister, the one who had shouldered the burden of caring for our dying father while I supposedly partied and wasted my life. He was good, I had to admit that. Several of her wealthy friends testified on her behalf, talking about what a devoted daughter she'd been. Then Dr. Vance took the witness stand. She methodically showed the jury every single forged signature, placing them side by side with Dad's real signatures on a large screen. The differences were impossible to ignore once they were pointed out. The courtroom went completely silent as the evidence piled up piece by damning piece. When the judge finally read the verdict 3 days later, guilty on all charges, Tara covered her face with both hands and sobbed like her heart was breaking. I felt nothing but relief washing over me like rain. She lost absolutely everything. The house was seized to pay restitution. The company Dad had built was put into receivership. Her wealthy friends vanished like smoke. Her husband filed for divorce within a week. All she had left was the reflection staring back at her from the mirror, the reflection of the person she'd chosen to become. Harrison called me after the sentencing. She got 3 years probation and has to pay back every dollar plus penalties. The judge was actually quite lenient considering. What about the real will? I asked. It's been validated. Everything your father left is legally yours now. He wanted you to have it, Eli. He always did. I sat down heavily, the weight of it all finally hitting me. I'd won, but somehow it didn't feel the way I thought it would. It just felt sad and empty and exhausting. 3 months later, I went to visit Tara. Her apartment was tiny, nothing like the mansion she'd been living in. The furniture looked like it came from thrift stores. She opened the door and I barely recognized her. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She'd lost weight. Her expensive clothes were gone, replaced by plain jeans and a faded sweater. We stared at each other for a long moment, then I handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It's from Dad's charity fund," I explained. $10,000, use it to start over, get your life back on track." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Why would you do this after everything I did to you?" I met her eyes. "Because I don't need revenge anymore, Tara. I already have something better than that." "What?" "Peace. I used part of the inheritance to rebuild Dad's old house by the lake, the one he'd always loved. In the backyard, exactly where he used to sit every morning with his coffee. I planted a new oak tree. I visit it every weekend. Sometimes when the wind moves through the leaves and makes them whisper, it almost sounds like Dad's voice saying, 'You did good, son, you did real good.' If you made it this far, please like and subscribe because peace like this takes time to build." The house is quiet now, peaceful. I donated most of the money to the causes Dad cared about: scholarships for kids who couldn't afford college, funding for the local hospital, programs for families dealing with terminal illness. The kind of things that would have made him proud. That's what the money was always supposed to be for anyway. Not greed, not power, just helping people who needed it. A local newspaper asked to interview me about the case last month. The reporter was young, eager, asking questions rapid fire. "Do you feel like you won?" she asked, her pen poised over her notepad. I thought about it for a long moment before answering. "No," I said finally. "I don't feel like I won anything, I just feel like I stopped losing." She looked confused by that answer, but she wrote it down anyway. The article came out a week later. They called me the brother who chose truth over family. I'm not sure that's completely accurate. I chose truth because it was family, because it honored Dad's memory the right way. That's all I ever wanted to do. Honor the man who raised me to always do what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Last Sunday, I visited Dad's grave. The grass has grown back thick and green over the plot. Flowers bloom around the headstone that I picked out myself. I placed a single white lily on the granite, just like I do every week. "The truth found me, Dad," I whispered, touching the cold stone gently. "Just like you promised it would in that letter, just like you always said it would." As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from the Scholarship Foundation. "First scholarship awarded in your father's name. Meet the recipient next week." I looked up at the clear blue sky and smiled. That's how my sister lost everything she tried to steal, and how I learned that real revenge doesn't shout or scream, it heals. Please like, subscribe, and remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living the life that honors the people who loved you.